Well, hi, friends. Welcome to the Ambassador of Southern Rock program on YouTube. First thing I want, and we're waving at you. The first thing I want to say is I want to ask you all, if you haven't yet, to please hit that old red subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. That way, anytime we post something new, you'll be among the first to know about it. Plus, it'll help us to build our audience, and we'll be forever indebted. Also, if you haven't seen the past interviews and stuff like that, highly recommend that you go back and watch the fun interview I had with Freddie Salem from the Outlaws, and the ones with Billy Bob Thornton and JD from the Box Masters. Oh gosh, there's so many good ones, so many good ones.
And pick up
It,
JD's book. JD's book is awesome.
who?
JD.
Oh, JD Andrew.
Yeah.
He's the man. He's actually the man. JD, in the Box Masters. Of course, Billy Bob Thornton is the star name. Of course, he's the star, but and writes the lyrics. But JD writes the music to all the songs, and he's an engineer, a very accomplished engineer that's worked on some major albums and stuff. People just don't realize uh, how much the guy's done, but he's very interesting. Anyway, today's topic. Well, first of all, I brought in my good friend. You know him, you love him, you can't live without him. All the way from North Kakalaki. This is Dwayne Fields, but we call him Rebel with a Y. Why? Because we like him. It's Rebel with a Y, and this is Rebel. Welcome to the program, Reb.
Thank you, Buffalo.
Thank you, Buzz. We've been wanting to do this for a long time. Back when we had the Kudzu Radio Hour on Sunday nights, uh, Rebel was one of the ones that I could count on, one of the very few I could count on to always call in. I was listening back to, we just posted on this very YouTube channel an audio interview I did several years ago with Doug Gray of Marshall Tucker Band. And I was listening to it, and Rebel called in on the program and was talking to Doug. It was hilarious. Doug thought he was another guy called Rebel because there are a few. There are a few rebels. There are a few good rebels. That's what this country needs, is a few more rebels.
There's only one that's spelled with a Y.
There's only one with a Y, Rebel with a Y, like Skinner with a Y. No, Skinner with two Y's, Rebel with one Y. Southern rock, baby. We know it. We love it. We can't live without it. We're going to talk about our personal top 5 Southern rock albums. And like Reb was saying before we went on the air, it's the criteria is 5 that mean the most to me or the most to him. Not necessarily going for Rolling Stones top 5 Southern rock albums of all time. No, these are just personal. And you can agree or disagree, and we welcome your comments right below this video. Please comment. Tell us what you think. I know, there's going to be 1,000 people saying, what about Tres Hombres? Well, what about blah, blah? What about this? What about that? Well, that's what it's all about, is getting the conversation started. And they're all great. Not all, but there's so much great. Narrowing it down to 5 was near impossible.
Impossible.
Impossible. Here's my little introduction. How do you define Southern rock? Is it rock music created exclusively in the South? Charlie Daniels once told me it was not a geographical thing, but instead a mindset, a brotherhood, an attitude, explaining why there have been so many good Southern rock bands from Washington State to New York to Germany to England and worldwide.
Japan, Bluestone.
Japan, yes, sir. Savoy truffle.
Yes.
There are people who will argue that Little Feat was a Southern rock band.
I totally agree that they were.
Let's see, and some say no, well, they're from California, but they certainly did have Southern rock sensibility. And then there are those who say the Eagles were Southern rock, which I totally disagree with. Um, Totally West Coast country. Um,
I
I
consider
once
them
had a
more country rock.
yeah. I once had a record company ask me to assemble the greatest ever collection of Southern rock, and they wanted me to write a big book to go with it, and it was going to be 5 CDs. Well, I put it all together, worked my butt off, and they were angry because I didn't include some of their favorite Southern rock bands like Fogat, a British boogie band, or Mountain, a power trio from New York, because they had a song Mississippi Queen. Everybody thought they were Southern rock. Don't, Leslie West, may he rest in peace, if you'd have told him he's Southern rock, he would have knocked your teeth out because this is a
Well,
New
he
York.
didn't want to be, Leonard Skinner featuring Leslie West.
Yeah. Could have happened. For the
No,
sake
it
of
wouldn't never
For the
happen.
sake of this list, the only rule is that the album should be from what I call classic Southern rock. That is, bands that there's no question as to whether or not they are Southern rock. And with that, I'm going to be the gentleman and let Rebel start out with his number five first. And I'm going to shut up while you tell people what your five is.
Well, my five are someone's at your door. Well, somebody's at my door.
Number five, number five,
Number five
just number five.
is a band that I didn't even know existed until their third album, and I'm ashamed to say that. I was at a buddy's house telling him about this new band I'd found, and and he said, "Well, they're not new." He said they've been around for a couple of years, and he went and brought out the other two albums. And I was telling him like, "Well, this new band I found is Ronnie Van Zant's brother." It was Rocking Into the Night, and he
Uh,
brought in and put on the turntable uh, 38 Specials debut album, and that just floored me. I didn't know anything about 38 Special because we live way out in the country, and we only had one like rock and roll station, and they just never played any of the 38 Special. They never played the Winners Brothers. The Grinder Switch, stuff like that. They never played it here, and without the internet and everything, I didn't know about it.
right.
And when I found that first album, I was like, "Holy cow! This is a breath of fresh air." That it to me personally, it sounded a whole lot like Skinner. And with it being released earlier in '77, I think it was a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, I have to
Because
agree. It was great.
kind of
And,
filled the void of the absence of Skinner.
and yeah, you're right. The first album did sound more like Skinner than before it went. They went into a more. I mean, I like them all the way through, but as you know, they went more into a pop rock.
Yeah,
Especially when Don Barnes started doing a lot of the singing,
right.
and Van Zant did less. But no matter how it stacks up, there's a lot of their songs that I love. And that first album, yeah, that's a good choice. My number five is from the Florida Guitar Army, the Outlaws, and it is the self-titled debut, the Outlaws from 1975. Uh, at first, I was going to put "Hurry Sundown" because it's one of my favorite songs, but when I was looking at all the Outlaws albums, that first one had a major impact on me. I mean, it's got the immortal song "Green Grass and High Tides." Huey
Yes.
Thomason once told me about how it became such a long song. He said that they would play it in shows, and it started out as like a 3 minute song, and they play it and they jam on it, on stage, and then by the time they got in the studio, they had worked it into this really long Freebird like epic. So that's pretty cool that it is sort of morphed into that. Uh, Also, it's thought by many for many years that Green Grass and High Tides was written about marijuana, but Huey said that is not the case at all. He said he started writing a song about all of the rock stars that were his favorites who had passed away, like Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, Dwayne Allman, and then uh, right after that, he started writing this whole song as a tribute to them, and the song title is based on the title of a 1966 Rolling Stones compilation album, Big Hits, High Tide and Green Grass. So he just inverted it into Green Grass and High Tides. Uh, well, yeah. The I can't read my own writing there. Sorry. Anyway, the album also included the great "There Goes Another Love Song," a huge hit. "Knoxville Girl," instrumental. "Waterhole" was a great little
Oh
instrumental
yeah, oh
and
yeah, love
song
that.
for you. So that's my number five, the Outlaws, self-titled, 1975. Moving into number four with Dwayne.
Number four, it was an album I had never heard the band before. I was in Camelot Music and I was flipping through albums just trying to find something. And this album just jumped out at me. The cover, the name, the whole nine yards. Never heard anything from them. And I flipped the album over and looked at these badass dudes on the back of it. And I knew this album had to be good. I've always been a Frank Frazetta fan.
Yeah,
And Molly had
yeah.
debut album. There's not a bad song on it, but hardly any of it gets any airplay today, and I don't understand why.
Because
I,
radio sucks,
there you go. That's why that's Spotify.
especially classic rock radio. They play the same 15
Awesome
songs
song
over and over.
every day, basically the same time every day,
Yeah. Yeah.
unless they have a call in where you can call and somebody eventually calls it. Hey, can you play I Can't Drive 55? Well, if you'd have waited 5 minutes, we'd have played it anyhow.
Yeah. Hey,
You know,
can you guys think you could play Hotel California
yeah, we've already played it 3 times today.
in the past hour? Yeah. I was listening to the classic rock radio the other day just because that's all my radio my car will pick up, you know. So I was listening to it for, shits and giggles. Riding down the road, and all of a sudden I heard something strange, and I cranked it up, and it was Danny Joe doing the creeper. And I
Whoa.
was like, whoa, somebody woke up at the radio station. What happened?
Or fell asleep.
Fell asleep. And I was like, oh, the creeper comes along. I'm like, yeah, baby. I just love that song loud. I love it.
Oh, yeah.
It's so good. A good choice. My number four comes from everybody's favorite long haired country boy, Charlie Daniels,
Oh, yeah.
my buddy. One of the greatest albums ever, Fire on the Mountain,
Fire on the Mountain.
1975.
That was in contention with mine, but it got knocked out by a couple of others. So,
Well, a good laxative will get rid of that. The 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 album. The thing I remember most about buying the album was, God, I miss vinyl albums, gatefolds, liner notes, freebies inside
oh,
the album. Like,
God,
you
yes.
open it up and there's doggone, if they're hitting a 45 in there, a Volunteer Jam live included free with a Fire on the Mountain album, and it was just jams, and it had a list of all the musicians: Toy Caldwell, Artemis Pyle, the Winters Brothers. All these people were jamming together on this 45. And now I've got my copy still. I saw somebody selling the 45 itself, with it come with a like a picture sleeve inside the album. And somebody was selling that thing on eBay for like a ridiculous amount of money. And I'm like, really? But anyway, that's neither here nor there. That was great. And even without that, the album, mm-mm-mm, the official theme song of Southern Rock, the South's going to do it again.
Yes, sir.
The roll call. And I can still remember, I get goose flesh thinking about standing on stage at Volunteer Jam when they were playing that. And Jimmy Hall was out there and Doug Gray, and all of them were jamming together. And when it came to Old Brother Willie getting soaking wet, uh, Jimmy Hall took that verse. I'm like, oh man, this is the coolest thing in the world. So I just loved it. That and Long Hair Country Boy. I love Charlie so much. Love him so much. And I respect his beliefs and everything, but that being said, I hated it when they went back and censored himself on these songs,
Yeah.
and cut out the part about smoking weed and all that. I understand that because it's
I
you know,
will tell another joke.
yeah, tell another joke. And yeah, I get up in the morning and I get down in the afternoon. That's
Don't
yeah,
y'all now.
yeah. I barely get up in the morning and I barely get down. Um, anyway, Charlie was the greatest. The song Orange Blossom Special live on there. I
Oh
remember the
man.
first time I met Charlie was on President's Day in 1996. I had met him backstage in the 70s, but I didn't know him. But I got to know him during the first interview in 96 when I was doing Grits Magazine, and I was up at his office, the log cabin office that he had. And we were sitting around. He fixed me up with some coffee and everything. We were chatting, and it was just so cool. And I just knew I was going to say something stupid, and I did. I was talking about my favorite song on the Fire on the Mountain album, and I said, Charlie, I really like that song, Caballo Diablo. And he goes, Michael, it's pronounced Caballo Diablo. I'm like, yeah, I never have been good at pronouncing Spanish words. Uh, I try. But anyway, that's it. Fire on the Mountain. And oddly enough, as an aside story, learned from George McCorkle, a Marshall Tucker band, once that his song "Fire on the Mountain," he originally wrote that for inclusion on Charlie's album because Charlie had told him he was going to call his next album "Fire on the Mountain." So George wrote it for Charlie, and then when it came time to do the album, something happened. It just didn't end up on there. I need to go back and ask Hornsby exactly if he can remember. They probably can't remember. Something happened, but their Charlie's loss was Tucker's game because it was one of their two or three biggest hits ever. So Fire on the Mountain by Charlie Daniels Band coming
Well,
in
coming in
four,
on Fire
four,
on the
four.
Mountain. Years later, when I heard George McCorkle and Candy Coburn do a duet of Fire
Oh,
on the Mountain, I felt like right there that song should have always been a duet with a female singer.
no, that's good. Well, Candy, man, Candy, great. She great.
I mean, it flowed and it made sense. Well,
Yeah.
it's it made sense, but you know, I
Well,
was
yeah,
happy
I know.
to hear it.
Dance hall girls were the evening treat. The let's see. Yeah, okay. Now we're up to your next one. What
Number
number is it?
three. Number three.
Number three. Number three. Number three.
Well, I'm gonna have to change the number three that I had written down. And like I said,
Oh,
all these I will give at the end. This one a great honorable mention, but I have to replace number three with an album that I first heard when it first came out, and there was a song on there that I told my buddies right then, and this is back in the early '70s, so I was 10 or 11 years old. I said, if I ever have a daughter, I'm going to name her Jessica.
Jessica.
And that is the album Brothers and Sisters.
Man, yeah. 1973, baby.
Yep.
The year that the whole music world changed.
Yes, sir. And it was that song still just makes my heart race when I hear it now. I just
Yeah, me too.
to say her name when I call her Jessica, it just I it took me 40 years to do it, almost 37 years to do it, but I did it. I got,
Well,
I
that's
got a
quite an
beautiful daughter
accomplishment.
named Jessica.
Well, Brothers and Sisters, one of my favorite albums too. And it's besides Ramblin' Man and Jessica and all those great songs. I always loved that song on their Pony Boy. And
Yes,
I told Dickie, I love that hand bone at the end of that song. That was just genius. Who when he came up with that idea to do the hand bone at the end, that's just the coolest thing.
it is.
It's great album, good choice, good choice. Well, my number three. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of this band. Now, they got a funny name, Leonard Skinnerd, and the album is called "One More from the Road,"
Yes, sir.
and produced by my buddy, the late great Tom Dowd. In fact, in my top five albums, two of them are produced by Tom Dowd. How about that? But
Probably more.
yeah, well, not in my top five,
Oh, not
but
your top.
we're working from MCA all the way through the final notes of Freebird. Everything on it's a winner. Um, some of my favorite moments from the thing we've discussed is the amazing T for Texas Jimmy Rogers cover, which you've talked about many times being one of your favorites too.
Yeah,
Um,
if Little Green Men were to land in my backyard right now and come up and say, "Hey, Rebel, what is Southern rock?" Two songs I would play for them. That is one, that song, T for Texas, off the original One More for the Road, and Elvin Bishop's Traveling Shoes off of Raising Hell. Those two songs to me are the epitome of Southern rock. They just define Southern rock in so many
you,
ways.
you're you hear my ringtone going off. My ringtone is Jessica. That's weird. Somebody got. It's funny that would go off right in the middle of this. The Yeah, um, T for Texas. I love, love, love Tuesday's Gone. Whiskey Rock and Roller. Traveling Man.
Crossroads.
Uh, Sweet Home. JJ Cale's. They call me the Breeze. But
Yes.
going back to T for Texas, I just love live stuff. I always liked the live albums. It's like to me, I don't want to hear T for Texas unless I hear Ronnie Van Zant say, "Give me a T for Texas, give me a T for Tennessee," or you hear,
Give me a T for Thelma. That
"I
one
want to
makes
hear, I
me
want to
move.
hear the whistle that he does. I want to hear, uh, stuff like bring all my mules out here and kick them one time." And all that stuff like,
Yeah, damn, that boy's funky.
and then Danny Joe carried on the traditional hatchet. As far as just whipping the crowd into a frenzy by the things that who would say with all the hell yes and all that kind of stuff. Everybody got to where they did that, but I think the first time I ever heard the hell yeah and all that was Danny Joe Brown. I mean, he brought it to the forefront of just redneck working man, blue collar, kick ass southern rock kind of thing. So anyway, that's my favorite era of Molly Hatchet was the original two, I guess, two albums probably. Um, anyway, that's mine. One more from the road is my number three. Number three, number three, number three. What's your number two?
My number two is one that
I don't want to talk about your number two. Oh, your number two album. I'm sorry.
I can send you a picture.
That's some good shit. Go ahead.
Um, it's an album that was not really released until about 30 years after it was actually recorded. And it's a live album. And I bought it on the day that it came out. Uh, and it's very near and dear to me. And I know it's very near and dear to you because you wrote the liner notes for it.
I did.
You did.
I did.
It's 2003's Stomping Room Only by the Marshall Tucker Band.
No, not stomping, stomping.
Stomping room only. That's what I said. My God, that just hearing
No G
Tommy,
on the end.
Tommy,
Stomping room, baby.
yeah,
Well, I'm glad you like that. And it was so weird that Hornsby said that that tape for that thing sat on his shelf for what 30 years,
yeah,
and then Doug contacted him and said, "We want to see if we can put that thing together, put it out." Well, all right, got it down, dusted it off, and next thing you know, old Jed's a millionaire. Man, it is a great live album from the Europe. There's all kinds of tape out there, and I've discussed this with my friend Craig Easton over in Great Britain. There's tape and video and everything from that tour with Marshall Tucker, Grinder Switch, and Bonnie Bramlett that we have none of us ever seen, and we want so badly for
yeah.
it to come out.
But to
Uh,
hear the original lineup of Marshall Tucker,
oh yeah, the best.
oh my God, that's not a bad song on that album. And there was another live one they did, which was okay, but it's not as good as Stomper Room Only. It was live from the West Coast, I think was the name of it.
West Coast Live, yeah.
West Coast Live, yes.
Well, no, I might be have that wrong. Yeah, yeah, but I know what you're saying. Yeah, I know what you mean.
But to
Yeah,
hear,
that was another one of those archival releases.
and it was just a breath of fresh air, just especially in 2003, because you don't hear original Southern rock that much anymore,
That's the truth.
unless you've got it in your archives. But to pull that out of the store and say, "Oh my God, it was awesome." That's my number two.
It's been 17 years since 2003.
Yeah,
Um, time flies when you're having fun. Speaking of Marshall Tucker Band, my number two is Marshall Tucker Band. Two albums set, half live, half studio, called Where We All Belong, produced by Paul Hornsby. Ah, what a great album. I can still remember the day I bought that LP at Rexall Drugstore. Yes, folks, I bought some aspirin and a Marshall Tucker album. Um, had my back. This is back when albums came out, so they came out with the frequency of a cheap ham radio. I mean, they were coming out. Tucker put out the first album, and then a new life, and Where We All Belong, all within a little over a year. So it was like what? But anyway, this old cowboy with a toy singing it
oh yeah.
was on the jukebox, Myrtle Beach, summer of '75. So many great memories. I kept pumping quarters. I was playing that and No More Mr. Nice Guy by Alice Cooper over and over. So you had Toy Caldwell and Alice Cooper together again for the first time. And then every night, we went one night and then we went subsequently 3 nights in a row to the Bowery to see a band called Wild Country that later became Alabama. And they were playing at that time. They were wearing stacked heels, like platform shoes, bell bottoms, all that kind of stuff, and playing covers. They played "Can't You See" and they played "Sweet Home Alabama." And I never will forget. Somebody yelled out. It's the first time I ever heard anybody yell out "Freebird," and this was in '75. And Randy Owen said, "You want free bird?" And they all just turned and did that, stuck their fingers up, and everybody thought that was pretty funny. We had a great fun with Alabama or Wild Country or whatever, and sat around. They sat around with us on breaks and consumed mass quantities of watered down beer. Great fun. But I remember talking to Randy about this old cowboy because it had just been out for a while,
Work a
and
week, $100.
yeah, work a week, make $100. I'll hit the road again. That's right, baby. I don't want you to think you the last one or the first one. I'm sorry. Anyway, so that's it. The Where We All Belong. Also, the very funky Where a Country Boy Belongs was
Oh
over there.
yeah.
And man, the Red Hot Smoking live blues every day, every day, every day. I have the blues. Some BB King action from Toy, and I'll never forget Rambling, the live version of Rambling on My Mind.
Oh
And
God.
you know, it's like I once wrote in somewhere in a review or a liner notes or something, and I could just picture Doug at the end of that song reaching down and squeezing his nutsack real hard to 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 get the screaming, and just that sustained note at the end of that was just mind blowing live. And lest we forget, we can't go without mentioning the classic 24 hours at a time live with Charlie Daniels sawing on the fiddle and playing it hot.
Sir.
Where it all belongs. My number two, number two, number two. What's your number one?
My number one was a another album that I
Making
bought.
It Back to Macon by Michael Buffalo Smith.
There you go. That's it. You found
Sure,
me.
sure it is.
I was
Yeah.
I was probably 9, 10 years old, and like you were talking about Rexall, my mama went to the Piggly Wiggly, and I went with her one day, and they had a little record rack out there in the front of the store. And while she went and got her groceries, I was flipping through all the albums out there, and I came across this one album that just, again, the cover jumped out at me, and the name jumped out at me, and I bought it. Sight Unheard, is that
Yeah,
acceptable?
sure. Sight unheard or sound unheard.
These badass guys sitting on a sidewalk with a lightning bolt coming down out of the sky.
Was one of them Ed King?
One of them was really close to Ed King, and it
The
is
lightning bolt was real.
the lightning bolt was real. He told that so
He
many
wrote that
times.
on my album cover.
Yes, the lightning bolt was real. But I had never heard Leonard Skinner, and I said, with a name like that, kind of like Molly Hatchet, with a name like Leonard Skinner and the badass boys like that, and the cigarette pack on the back, it had to be good.
That's the
And
truth.
we brought it home. I brought it home, and I put it on the turntable. And from the first drum beats from "I Ain't the One," I was hooked as a Leonard Skinner fan for life.
No doubt.
That is why that's got me hooked on Southern rock at that age. And
That's that's cool.
that is why that's my number one. Like I said, every one of these has a little story behind it. Why
Well,
they're
yeah, that's what
important
I'm
to
so
me.
glad you're doing that, because that's the way I like to do it. That's the way I like to roll too. Um, pronounce Leonard Skinner in '73. My dad was studying to be a Baptist minister. We were going to church every Sunday, and there was a guy, I can't remember his name. There was a guy went to church when we talked about music quite a bit, and he goes, "Hey, have you heard of this band Leonard Skinner?" And I'm like, "What? Leonard who?" And he says, "No, let me turn you on to him, man." He says, "Tonight at at worship service tonight, I'll bring it back. I got a 8-track tape of Pronounce. You take it home, listen to it, and then bring it back to me. Imagine that you could actually trust somebody to loan them something back then,
Yeah.
and actually get it back. So I took it home and listened to it on the 8-track, and I had never heard anything like it. It just completely flabbergasted me. And I think because it had such a impact on me too, Rebel, is because it had such a real impact on me years later, as fate would have it, when I was doing the grits and all that kind of stuff, and had the blessing, I say blessing, of getting to meet and know some of these guys like Bob Burns and all. Well, even in '77, when I got to meet Ronnie and all that, I mean, it was bittersweet because he was killed the next day, but he was great, and got to know Artemis and all those folks later. But from the original album, the one that I really thought so much of was Ed King. And then flash forward to early 2000s, I did a couple of interviews for Grits with him, and we kind of hit it off. And then I was doing the Winters Brothers Southern Jam, and they invited Ed to come up, and Dennis and Donnie and them were going to play a set of Skinner songs with Ed King, and they did. It just went from one song to the next, and they had Barry Lee Harwood there playing as well. But when I found out it was going to be there, I don't know. I just kind of got my brave shirt on or whatever. I don't know how to put it. I just got real brave, and I said, "Hey Ed, so what would you think about jamming with me on my set?" There's dead silence for about 30 seconds, and he goes, "Sure, what you gonna play?" I said, "Well, it's gonna be all originals and it's acoustic." And he goes, "Cool. I'll bring my Gibson and we'll do it." And I was like, "Okay." So it happened. I mean, it happened. It happened. They played on about four songs and was going to do 10. He played on about four songs, but they kept getting feedback on his guitar, and he was smoking a stogie, right? In his Hawaiian shirt, and he kept saying, "We got to get that sound fixed. We got to get that sound fixed." And it was so funny. After about the fourth time of it feeding back, he just jerks the plug out of the guitar and he stands up and he goes, "All right, Buff, you're on your own."
K Mag Yo Yo.
He's gone, baby. But for that four songs, he was putting lead, tasty slide lead acoustic stuff on my stuff. And I felt like, wow, it's as if I played with both the Strawberry Alarm Clock and Leonard Skinner. Um, you know, 6 degrees of separation, but it was wonderful. And that album that pronounced wonderful, which leads me to my number one. And you talk about how Skinner set you on the path to Southern rock. This album set me on the path to Southern rock back in 1972, 71 or 72 in high school.
I know what it is.
Yeah, I know you do. A friend of mine, Mark, uh, came to school one day. We used to bring things to school and show it to other people, like show it to, just, hey, look what I got. And so he shows up with this album by the Allman Brothers called Fillmore East. And I'm like, oh, I've heard of them. I think I read about them in Cream or Circus or something. Oh, yeah, yeah, man. You got to check it out. Uh, it's
It was hard.
live.
It was hard for me to not include that one in my list because I knew that you were going to include it in your list.
Yeah, it's my number one album of all time. And I've told this story before, but Mark let me borrow that album and take it home, and I listened to it. But like I said, I've told this story before, but it's my I keep a notebook, and I have since probably 1975, and every 2 times a year I'll list my top 50 albums. It's just something I do for me, and I've got it over here, this notebook. And oddly enough, all the other albums will change, but the top two have never changed. It's always Fillmore East, followed by Layla and Other Sorted Love Songs.
Two good ones.
That's my top two. The third one, vacillates between Where We All Belong and, dare I say it on this program, The Kick Inside by Kate Bush. Or so I like a lot of that stuff too. Um, and David Bowie and just God, Deep Purple, just so much. I just love so much music, but nothing can replace Dwayne Allman or Greg Allman or any of those cats in
No.
the Allman Brothers band. And like you say, the you mentioned Brothers and Sisters, which I had a hard time not putting that on my list. As you heard a while ago, Jessica's
Well,
my ringtone. It's not my daughter like you, but it's my ringtone.
I swapped it out sort of last minute. Uh,
What was your honorable mention then that you just took away?
it was another album that I bought on the first day that it was released, and I brought it home and I was sitting in my bedroom playing, or not playing. I was going to say playing video games. There were no video games back then. I was doing homework. I was getting smart.
Yeah,
I
getting smart.
was doing homework and I listened to the album like, oh, probably 4 times. And I finished my homework and I'm like, well, okay. I went, took the album off, turned the radio on, and the DJ was talking about a plane that had gone down in over Macomb, Mississippi,
Yeah,
and that was Street Survivors. That's the one that got replaced.
I want to tell you, man, that I had bought that album like a week before I saw, or just a few days before I saw that last Skinner show in Greenville,
Yeah,
and I just loved it. Well, I can still, if I hear you got that right, him, Ronnie, and Steve back and forth on the vocal was just, it still gets me excited. I could listen to that every day.
yeah.
And that whole album is just wonderful.
There's not a bad song on it.
Street Survivors, I just, I don't know. Well, that's good. Well, it's a good list. Hey, I think we're doing good.
I think so
An
too.
honorable mention for me. I have a bunch, but I just have to. One of the more underrated bands that really deserves to be listened to in a big way is the Winters Brothers Band, Dennis
Yes,
and
sir.
Donnie Winters. Their debut album, self-titled, and then they did one, another one, another album too. What they call the blanked on the name?
The concept album, the
Yeah, that one.
Stampede,
Huh?
Stampede.
No, no, no. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the original albums. They did two. They did a self-titled, and then they did
Young Rockers.
no, something live. Dadgummit, man. Now, see, I'm gonna make myself look stupid because my memory is so bad. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I can't think of the name of it.
I know
Anyway,
which one you're talking about too, and I can't think of it. But
yeah,
yeah, it was an awesome, awesome album.
yeah. Um, all those later things that they did were great too. But that first album, produced by Taz DiGregorio, um,
With
it
Charlie
was
Mingus.
wonderful. Keep on, yeah, man, good stuff, good stuff. Um, well, I'm sitting here and I was googling it, but it isn't working for me. I know it like the back of my hand. I cannot believe that. But sorry, folks. Sorry, folks. I'll go back in the comment section and add it so I don't look completely stupid. Well, not completely. But I love the Winters Brothers. They did some great stuff, and people need to know about them too. So, with that, I'm going to go ahead and say bye to my friend here on the phone. Um, he's on his phone right now, so he's not
I was
listening.
trying to help you out with that album.
Oh, I see. He's googling. He's googling. Uh.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
I got nothing either.
Yeah. Yeah. It just won't. The way it is now at my age, the more I try to think of something, it's further. It's like
Yeah,
a
yeah,
boat going away
yeah.
from a pier.
It's
You
like
know,
looking at a star at night and you don't see it. But you look away, you see it for a brief second.
ah, Lord. Well, thanks, Rebel Dwayne, for doing this. And we enjoyed it. And we'll do some more another time. And folks, don't forget to comment below and don't forget to subscribe to the Ambassador of Southern Rock channel. And also, please listen to the Kudzu Radio Hour every week and read the Kudzu magazine at kudzumag.com. And end of commercial. All right. Later on, Reb. Talk to you down the road.
All right, brother.
Thanks a bunch.
Making it back to Macon. Give me some grits, gravy, and bacon. Just a little something to tide me over. Mama Louise and the H&H Open. She got fried chicken and pinto beans, hot cornbread, sweet iced tea. Everything that a body needs. That's why I'm making it back to Macon. Give me some grits, gravy, and bacon. Just a little something to hold me over till Mama Louise and the H&H Open.